Welcome to the Principles for Smart Living show with Conrad L. Jones. Here we talk about 5 things vitally important to smart living, which we call the Life Mastery Matrix. Those 5 things are faith, growth, excellence, contribution, and self-care. Faith constitutes your spiritual journey and relationship with God. Growth is your attitude to keep learning and becoming a better person. Excellence is your approach to doing quality work in everything you put out in the world. Contribution is about sharing your gifts and talents to be a blessing to others and to unlock more of your God-given capacity and capabilities. And self-care is you taking care of your body, mind, and spirit, and also getting quiet rest to refresh and renew yourself regularly. Let's join Conrad.
I'm your host, Conrad L. Jones, author and founder of PurposeUnleashed.com. Now let's get started. If this is your first time joining me on the show, I want to say welcome and thanks for you sharing your time with me. In the previous episode, we talked about how to gain clarity in the 5 most important arenas of your life. In today's episode, let's talk about how to simplify life by moving from clutter to clarity. First of all, to move from clutter to clarity, let's start by defining what clutter really is. Clutter is about 2 distinct things that I want you to pay attention to. Clutter is defined as 1, a disorderly heap or assemblage, which means that clutter is described as a thing that is out of position or place. And then secondly, it is described as filling or littering with things in a disorderly manner. And this means that clutter is defined as an action or a process of doing something. So clutter is about 2 simple things. It is about position and process. The position of disorganized, disorderly stuff in your life, and the process or the way you manage that stuff. Now, it's important to understand clutter because that's the only way to know how to move away from it and towards clarity. So learn this little secret. Life itself has a lot of stuff constantly moving around because life is constantly in motion. It is always changing, evolving, growing, etc. Life is always moving around your emotions, your ideas. The environment of life is never static. It is always changing. People and things are constantly in motion, moving into and out of your life. And as things move around, clutter happens and clarity diminishes. So, to avoid this happening in your life, you must be careful of 2 simple rules. Rule number 1, make sure that those things which move into your life find a proper place that allows you to grow and progress. Or, rule number 2, you immediately eject things from your life that have no real value, so it does not take up valuable space, because that leads to clutter, and this is what diminishes clarity. I personally found that most of us are really good at moving things into our lives, but we are really horrible at quickly and effectively rejecting things that don't belong or ejecting things that have no proper place in our lives. And this is how clutter builds and causes our clarity to become cloudy. Have you ever seen or played a game such as Tetris or Candy Crush, or one of those games where the pieces are moving and the object of the game is that you simply put them into their proper place so that you clear the board and win? The thing though is that these pieces are sometimes constantly changing and they're constantly coming at you. And if you don't put them away properly, they begin to stack up on each other until you have a disorganized mess. And bam, you've lost the game. Any of this sounds familiar? Well, the game of life is always throwing things at you from various directions. but you are supposed to be the game's master and to decide if those things belong in your life. And if not, to reject them right away. And if they do belong in your life, you put them into proper perspective and put them in their rightful place to help you progress from day to day. Now, that sounds easy, right? But you're probably thinking, how do I know what belongs in my life and what to eject? And this is why we started in an earlier session where we talked about your big picture life. So you get a chance to go back through the podcast and find that session that we did on your big picture life. This is going to give you a broader dimension of this. You know, I've seen in my own life that things become cluttered and disorganized and chaotic whenever I don't put things into their rightful place or get rid of the unnecessary. And I've also found that I've got to be careful not to allow other people to put things in the wrong places in my life. Because sometimes people want to get rid of their mess, so they dump it off on you. And that can be anything from work assignments to emotional issues. Here's an example. Have you ever been having a good day when someone comes in? They disrupt you with a bad attitude or emotion of sadness or anger. And when they leave, you are now angry, sad, or your attitude has soured. Then what started out as a good day suddenly turns into a horrible one, and you felt that you should have stayed under the covers in bed, right? Well, that's an invisible process called dumping, where people transfer their negative emotions or energy to you. And unless you are a good gatekeeper who knows how to block that stuff, people will always rain on your parade. In the next upcoming episode, we'll talk about how unique greatness is often found in the most unlikely places. We'll talk about the story of Gideon and how God's perspective of us often differs from our own perspectives of ourselves, and why it is important to have a godly perspective rather than just a good perspective of who we are.
Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this inspirational session and that it added value to you. If this episode has been a blessing to you and you want to download it, share it to bless your friends, or grab the other free resources we have available for you, visit us at purposeunleashed.com/principles podcast and have a great day.